All right, so we'll go ahead and get started here. So my name is Corey Sowards. Like I said, unfamiliar face because I'm usually just watching the webinars, but I am the Director of Marketing and Communications here at Let Grow. So anything marketing related, any emails that have been answered, usually they're by me. So you've seen my writing, but you haven't seen the face. And um, with that being said, just a few housekeeping things before we get started. The first one being is I already saw a Q&A question of is there going to be a recording because somebody can't make it? And the answer to that is absolutely yes. We always will send out a recording to those who have attended, or also those that have registered but weren't able to attend or had to leave early. So that'll be sent out by end of day tomorrow once I get the video cleaned up a bit and get it in a nice polished email out to each of you. So absolutely, there will be a recording ready for you to view by tomorrow evening. The other thing is you'll see at the bottom of the screen, you have a Q&A um, section. And with that section, it's just that's where you will input your general questions for the panelists. And then if you want to, chat amongst yourselves, the chat is open as well. And I will say with that, I'm paying more attention to the Q&A than the chat itself at this point of the webinar. So if you end up putting a question that you want answered into the chat and not the Q&A, there's a slight chance that I might miss that. So if you have any questions, please direct that to the Q&A because at the end of the webinar, we will be asking panelists those questions. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our very own Lenore Skenazy and Catherine Price.
Where is she? I know she's there. I just saw her. Hi. Hi,
Hello.
Catherine. And thank you, Corey. So I am really excited to be able to interview Catherine, who is an inspiration and an author and a friend. She has written a bunch of books, including How to Have More Fun. Who doesn't want that? Right? And How to Break Up with Your Phone. I think we're going to touch on that a little bit tonight. But most recently, she has written the mega, super duper, number one, million selling New York Times bestseller, which I brought with me on vacation, where I still am since my flights were canceled. But this is the book of hers. The Amazing Generation. Okay, you've probably seen it on every talk show, heard it on every podcast, and now you're hearing it on ours, our webinar. And she co-wrote it with Let Grow's co-founder, Jonathan Haidt. And so I was thinking about it, it sort of makes us cousins because like, wait, you're related to him and we're related to him. And
Definitely.
it is, yeah, it's a great book. You can see I've turned down certain pages in here. It's really fun to read. And it's not just the kid version of the anxious generation, although that'd be fine too. But it's more than that. It's really a book that's written for kids, I think fifth through eighth grade, right?
Yeah,
Basically.
fourth through eighth. We've actually found that kids like it's hitting a
It's
wider
a wide
age range than
swath.
we thought. Yeah, yeah, yeah. But as young as
Right.
fourth or fifth grade, yeah.
All right, those precocious fourth graders and the slightly slower freshmen, whatever, they're all reading this book because it's telling them something really amazing, which is how the tech wizards have sort of duped them into believing that the tech world, the phone, is where they want to live their lives. It goes deep into the machinations of the tech wizards. She calls them tech wizards. We call them tech bros. We know who they are, who work in Silicon Valley, who have taken all the lessons of gambling and slot machines and used them on these seemingly innocuous social, nobody thinks they're innocuous anymore, but the very attractive social media that our kids like, Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and the like. But it's not just telling the kids what's under the hood, which in itself is obviously empowering. It also profiles all these young people in Gen Z, just like one generation older. Trying to look for a picture of one. They're real kids with real photos of them. Of course, I can't find a single one at the moment. Oh,
Oh
here's
boy.
one. Right, there you go. Real kids, young people who have decided to reject the phone-based childhood and the phone-based young adulthood because they realized that it was a lie, that they weren't having more fun there, they weren't making more friends there. And they are the rebels that are very attractive that the young people who are reading this book are finding out about. And I think they're truly being inspired. And that was going to be my first question for you, Catherine, which is like, first of all, I know it's selling like hotcakes. Have you heard like your favorite story about some kid who read this book and said, "Forget it, I'm throwing the phone out the window," or "Mom, please don't get me that phone. You were going to get me for my birthday."
Well, yes, and I just want to start by saying thank you to everyone who's here tonight, and a special thanks to Lenore, who is a total inspiration to me as a parent, as I'm sure we will talk about throughout this conversation, and who I'm really happy to say is now my friend and my colleague and helped with this book, and you'll see her influence throughout it, and you'll see Let Grow in it, and it's just really been a delight to get to know this community and get to know Lenore. So thank you for having me tonight. And yes, it's been amazing. Like the response. So when John and I were conceiving of and writing the book, obviously we dreamed that it would resonate with kids. We put a ton of work into the design, into trying to make it as engaging and non-condescending and inspirational as possible. But you never know. I mean, it's like a book ultimately. Like, what are you
Wait, what's a book again? It's like you
Right, exactly.
scroll it, but
Do we
with
swipe?
pages.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly. And so it came out December 30th, and it has been just one of the highlights of my entire career, if not the highlight, to hear some of the responses. We've heard from a lot of parents whose kids have read it more than once, whose
Oh my
kids have been
God.
fighting over it. Yeah, yeah, like yeah. Or a parent who says, I'm leaving a review, but I haven't actually read it myself because my kid won't give it back, which is amazing. And just these anecdotes. I mean, we heard a story from one person who left a review and who actually emailed me personally, who was saying, you'll appreciate this for Let Grow, that she didn't
Hmm.
know if it was the result of the book, but ever since reading it, her son had become much braver about doing things in the real world, going and knocking on friends' doors, going and doing things on his own, even getting braver about getting shots at the doctor's office. I mean, truly amazing. And the story that stands
Wow.
out to me in particular, there's so many, but one that stands out is someone who told me it's a friend of mine whose kid plays a lot of Fortnite, or at least had played a lot of Fortnite. He's in fifth grade, and he read the book, and he said to his parents, he said, I've been thinking about it, and I like Fortnite and I like video games, but I'm not really sure that this is a hobby. Like, I'm not really sure if this is something that's really making me a more interesting person, or that's really like, that I'm enjoying the way that one might a hobby, and I'd like help figuring out more hobbies. And so they brainstormed together of more things that he could do or try. And I think he's doing more on his own, but they also have now a routine of doing a family trip to the climbing gym each
Oh
week,
wow.
which they're all really enjoying. So that's stories like that where I'm like, oh my goodness, it's just amazing to think that the book really is inspiring kids and changing lives. So yeah, it feels really
That
good.
is just, yeah. I mean, those kids are, they're climbing and they're strumming and they're drumming and they're doing all those things thanks to, well, actually, what do you think it's thanks to? They're reading your book. What do you think is turning them on?
I think it's that the book is telling them the truth. I've been thinking about that.
Yeah.
Like why is this resonating? I mean, I think also it is beautifully designed and it's in full color and there's a graphic novel element. There's all this stuff that's there to really draw people in. Yes, thank you, Lenore.
Right.
But I think that ultimately is that we're telling them the truth about how we're all being manipulated by the tech bros or the tech wizards, as we call them in the book. And
Mm-hmm.
we're exposing the lies that all of us have been told by these companies. So they've told us that their products are going to give us more friendship and more freedom and more fun. And in reality, that's not true at all. And I think the other thing that is really making it resonate with kids is that we're not just doom and gloom. We're giving them a positive
Mm-hmm.
vision of what life can be like if you choose a different path from the generation before yours. So I think it's that combination of like,
Mm-hmm.
you can tell if someone's lying to you and we're not lying to them. This is stuff I wish all
Right.
adults knew about how we've been manipulated by big tech. And honestly, the advice that we give kids in this book is the exact same advice that I would give, and in fact, I do give to adults in my other books, and it
Mm-hmm.
boils down to use technology as a tool, don't let it use you, and then fill your life with
Mm-hmm.
real friendship, real freedom, and real fun, which is what we call the Rebels Code in the book. But yeah, I think that's
And which is
why,
what we call let grow.
which is what you call Let
Same,
Grow. Yeah,
exactly. No,
yeah,
it
exactly.
it is it dovetails. So tell us a little bit about what you're explaining to kids about the techniques that the tech bros or the tech wizards use. What are they, how are they making us so addicted?
Yeah, so we frame it in the book as there being secrets that the tech wizards don't want kids or anybody else to know. And we set that up
Mhm.
by explaining a really interesting finding from a poll that I think, Lenore, you were involved in creating potentially, but it was a Harris poll in 2024.
Oh, I did that. Yeah.
And it was in addition to the one about kids in play, but it was about whether or not Gen Z, how they felt about some of the platforms they spend the most time on. So, like, how do you
Oh, no, I
feel?
didn't work on that.
Was this before? Okay. Yeah, but it was about basically like how many of you, or would you potentially wish that some of these platforms had never been invented, that they didn't exist? And it ran down the list of some of the major social media platforms that young people spend the most time on. And the result was really interesting. They were almost half of the respondents, and they ranged in age from 18 to 27 years old, said that they wish that some of the most popular platforms didn't exist at all. So it was like I
Wow.
believe that Twitter was 47%, Snapchat was like 43%, and TikTok was very high as well. And as we say in the book, that's really interesting because at the same time, American teenagers are spending about 5 hours a day just on social media and YouTube, if not more, which is a huge amount of
Right.
time. So, like, why would you be spending that much time on platforms that you say you wish never existed? And as we say in the book, like,
Yeah.
if you said you hated bicycles, you wouldn't say you wish bicycles didn't exist, you just wouldn't ride one. So I'm getting to my
Mm-hmm.
answer to your question. So what we say in the book is the
Mm-hmm.
answer to that mystery is that the generation above our readers has been tricked and trapped. And if our readers want to avoid that fate for themselves of the anxiety and depression and fragmented attention, all the stuff that's discussed in the anxious generation, then they need to know the truth. And so we lay out these five secrets of the tech wizards, which I'm happy to go into in more detail, but it basically, we explain the manipulative design techniques that are being used against all of us. We talk about how these apps are designed to mimic slot machines, how the companies,
Go into that for a second.
oh, sure.
Explain
Yeah.
about
So
how they're like slot machines.
yeah, so the fundamental thing everyone should understand about any app that's free is that you're not the customer. The customer is an advertiser, and you're actually the product that's being sold, or more specifically, your attention is being sold to advertisers. So, if a company puts an ad on Instagram, if I even look at it for a second, then that company will pay Instagram a little bit of money, and that adds up to billions of dollars. So
Wow.
the more time and attention we spend on these apps, the more money the social media companies or the video game companies make. And so they are very incentivized to create products that we will spend the maximum amount of time on. And in fact, to design products that can addict us. And they do that by
Right.
copying techniques directly from slot machines, which are some of the most addictive machines ever to have been invented. And slot machines hook people by triggering the release of a chemical in your brain called dopamine, which is a chemical that does a lot of things in our bodies, but one thing it does is help us establish habits and sometimes addictions by kind of helping us. It's like a salience indicator. Like anything that triggers the release of dopamine is something that you will be motivated to do, to seek out and do again. So if you think about the fact that food is a dopamine trigger, it makes sense. It reminds us to eat and it puts us in the habit of
Right.
eating or, sex or reproduction, whatever. But our dopamine systems are very non-discriminatory, and anything that triggers dopamine is something we're going to seek out and repeat. So slot machine makers take advantage of that by just packing dopamine triggers like bright colors or unpredictability or
Don't they make
rewards,
ding, ding, ding?
things,
Yeah.
sounds. They pack
Mm-hmm.
those into
Mm-hmm.
slot machines. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know a combination of fruits or whatever you're going to get,
Mm-hmm.
and you obviously don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you're going to win. That keeps people glued to the machines. Well, it's interesting because slot machines are so addictive that no state allows anybody under 18 to play them. It's also
Right.
interesting that the social media companies deliberately copied those techniques, put them into their apps. So you'll see the bright colors, novelty,
Right.
unpredictability, rewards in the form of, social affirmation in the case of social media, or money or
Oh, I
points.
know this so well for myself. Oh, did anybody retweet me? Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, when
Yeah.
they put the retweet button on Twitter, it completely
Yeah.
changed the way people interacted with. So what is important to just recognize is that these are designed to be addictive and these apps are designed to mimic slot machines and manipulate our biochemistry on a very subconscious level in a way that willpower has no chance against. And if you think about a kid whose brain and prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that can control your decisions, it's not developed. It's not fully developed till you're at least 25. Like they have no
Mm-hmm.
chance of being able to stand up to these apps.
Okay, two things. One is I just wanted to reiterate the thing that I thought is most interesting about the design of slot machines slash Twitter for me is the intermittent rewards. If you were
Yeah.
being rewarded every time, if every time you came back, there was a smiley face or whatever, that wouldn't be enough. It's the fact that sometimes you get retweeted and sometimes you don't, that makes it so powerful. And that's what kids
Yeah.
are doing with their Instagrams. Did anyone like it? Did anyone, forward it? Whatever. Is that it?
Yeah, yeah, it is very interesting because you would think that we'd be more attracted to things that always had positive outcomes. But
Mm-hmm.
if there's any sports fans out there or anyone who likes watching movies or TV shows, you don't want to know what the final score is, or you don't want to know how, you don't want the spoiler. It's
Right.
that same tendency. Our brains actually really, really are attracted to unpredictability. It's the surest way to get
Wow.
an animal addicted to something, or just you just have to just space out the rewards in an unpredictable way.
Right. Okay. So that was brilliant of them. Okay. So if the brain, I got a high five, and yet shame on them, the tech bros. If you just said that the brain has no chance against something this powerful and this well designed, how are kids supposed to resist?
Well, I think it's really difficult, if not impossible, for a child who's really immersed in a video game or an app like a social media app that's designed this way. It's really difficult, if not impossible, for them to resist, especially if all of their classmates and peers are on these things. If socialization starts to happen solely online, then that's a whole nother level. It's not just the addictive features that are built into the apps, but it's the social pressure and the very natural desire to not be left out. We're a social species.
Mm-hmm.
Like social isolation
Mm-hmm.
is very physically painful to humans and carries the same health risks as emotional stress. I mean, it's very bad
Mm-hmm.
to be isolated. So I think that that is one of the reasons that we can't put this on kids. We can give them the information and we can give them the choice to choose a different path, and we can hope that they'll choose it, and we can offer them a positive alternative, which I know we'll talk more about. But I do think that ultimately there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of unless they were better regulation, unless the tech bros like woke up with a totally different
Mm-hmm.
attitude and made changes, because they could make changes to their products quite easily that would make them much better, much safer, and less addictive, but they are
Mm-hmm.
not going to do that. So unless those magical things happened, unfortunately, a lot of the onus is on us as adults and as parents to set limits for our kids, or in an ideal world, actually not give them access to these things. I mean, social media is fundamentally unsafe for children, and we can get as dark as you'd like with that, but it's not a matter of like,
I think we're
freak
dark
out,
enough there. I
anxious.
think if it's unsafe and it's addictive and it's slot machines, and I was thinking like sort of like the opium den. It's like I wish they hadn't invented opium, but here I am, pass me the hookah. So tell us about Tech Bros Kids. That's one of the cool things in the book that you talk
Is it
about.
cool, Lenore? It's something that kids so when I ask kids, when I give talks for young audiences or just talk to friends and hear stuff from reviewers and stuff, it's like the thing that stands out to the kids the most is the hypocrisy of the tech bros. Because as we say in the book, you might think as a child that it would be really cool to be the child of a tech leader because you wouldn't have fights about screen time. You would be getting all the
Mm-hmm.
latest gadgets. You'd be online all the time. And the reality is the opposite. So these are the people who know the most about their products because they're making them. But in many, many cases, they actually don't allow their kids access to the products that they have created, or they severely limit their access to them. And kids like that page in the book is the one that kids have pointed out like the most, that had the biggest impact. And they keep multiple parents have told me like that's the thing my kid picked up on and they were just shocked and outraged by. But like Mark Zuckerberg covers up his kids' faces if he has anything about them on Instagram. The CEO of TikTok doesn't let his kids use the app. I just was looking at something was it Sam Altman was talking the OpenAI guy was talking
Yeah.
about the how he thinks social media is bad for children's brains. There were stories in the media a
Wow.
couple years ago about like contracts that some of these leaders and tech execs have with their nannies, where the nannies can't be on phones around the kids, but the kids can't have access to any kind of screens. So Steve Jobs himself didn't give his kids access to iPads. Bill Gates delayed the age at which his kids got smartphones. I mean, it just goes on and
It's
on and
pretty
on.
damning.
It's
Yeah,
pretty damn. It
right.
doesn't not a good
Right.
look.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, right. But what I love is that the thing that resonates most for the kids is hypocrisy. I
Yeah.
mean, they would love to find that. I mean, it's like, wait a minute, you're telling me. So that is a
Yeah.
very cool point. All
Yeah.
right, so that's the dark side. Obviously, the dark side, and either we delay the time that our kid until the age that our kids get their devices, or we hope for regulations. Obviously, the school phone ban has been sweeping the country, which is great. It's in like 40 states or something like that now.
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
it's
know.
more
It's
than
just
40 states that have phone-free
wow.
policies. And it should be bell to
Hmm.
bell. And not all those states have a bell to bell policy, but it's really amazing to
Hmm.
see the progress that's been made in a short period of time. That was definitely spurred on by the anxious generation.
Yeah, I'll say. Okay, so that's the dark side of tech and the phones and the screens and the wizards and the bad dads out there. And the other half of your book is very positive. It's these amazing stories of amazing rebels. And give me a story of a couple of these young people and tell me how you found them.
Yeah, that was one of the most inspiring parts of the process was hearing from young people about how they were choosing to live their lives. So getting to know some of the young rebels that we profiled in the book, and then also hearing from a lot of other young people who really did have regrets about how they had grown up with screens and really wanted to give advice to the younger generation.
There was a lot of regret of these young people who keep saying, like, I spent, 10 years on TikTok and I could have learned how to, sing or make a friend or
Yeah.
surf or anything like that. They really do sound rueful. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that was actually a general theme that really came out through the process of writing this book. And then also, since it's come out, is just how insightful a lot of these young people, like the kid I was mentioning before, the Fortnite insight about hobbies, as I said, he was in fifth grade. We kind of like assume that kids that age can't have that deep of a thought, but like they're very insightful if they're given the information and if they're asked questions and it's self-reflective. So that was really inspirational. But yeah, so we had a lot of anecdotes from people slightly older than our readers, like teenagers up through early 20s, Gen Z basically, and older Gen Alpha, about their regrets and what they wish they'd done differently. So that was kind of, I guess it's not positive in and of itself, but it was very interesting to hear. And I think it's really important for young readers to hear because if they look around in their everyday life, it can seem like all the teenagers slightly older than them are loving being on social media and loving the
Mm-hmm.
time that they're on their
That they're
phone.
always posting. Yeah.
Exactly. And then we also found some young people who had gone a step further, who were consciously deciding either to change their ways in a very intentional manner, or who had just decided, I'm just not going to get involved with this to begin with. And so those are the profiles that you were alluding to and showed an image of from the book. One of them is this young man named Sean Killingsworth, who was
We love
recently,
Sean.
I know, Sean is amazing. He was recently
Yeah.
profiled in the
It's
New York
cute.
Times. Yeah, and he's an amazing
Mhm.
skateboarder. That's who you were showing
Yeah.
actually. And
Hmm.
he started a movement called the Reconnect Movement, which is a network of clubs on college campuses where students get together to spend time together without phones. And Sean is deeply insightful. He has gone through phases where he has a smartphone, but he realized he just doesn't want to live that way. And he went through periods of feeling really isolated and lonely and depressed about it, and then came
Hmm.
through the other side and is really very committed to living as fully as he possibly can, and then creating more opportunities for people in his generation and the generation beneath his to actually have more real life fun. And he's just, I mean, I had dinner with him at some point last year and I had to go to my room for something and I came out and he was just chatting with someone on a flip phone on the balcony in the
Oh, a flip
hotel
phone. Okay.
restaurant. Yes. So he's an
He's allowed.
example. And it's like, I think the
Hmm.
big thing is the people that we found, they're having fun. Like I made a point of getting photos from them. Like, send me a photo of you doing one of your hobbies. Like, let's actually show what you're doing. And that was really cool. We got one guy playing the bass and there's someone playing basketball and it's just showing like there's so much you can do with the time you're spending on your phone. Like there's just so much more
The
to
time you're
explore.
spending on Earth. I mean, yeah. And I
Yeah.
know another popular part of your book is where you show if you're on your phone 4 hours a day, that means this many hours a week. That means this many months a year. That means this many years of your life. And I think the section is like how to freak someone out. And you
Yeah,
look
I'm
at those
finding it.
numbers
It's
and
that
it,
is
it
the
is a
other
freak out
page.
page. Yeah. Yeah.
This
Yeah.
page, it's screen
Yes,
time
screen time
calculator.
calculator to freak people out. Yeah, 1 hour a
It's
day is what I can't even see it from there, but it was like, what
15
is one
days a
hour a day?
year. It's
15 days a year. That's an
and
entire
that's
vacation. Yeah.
And I was telling the average teenager spending like 5 hours a day on social media and YouTube. Well, that's 2.5 full months a year, like no sleep, just scrolling, which is a whole summer break. And that's the other page that I've definitely heard from people. Their
Hmm.
kids are pulling out and in some cases using to, as was intended, tell their parents about their screen time, which was a
Right.
deliberate strategy because I just feel like so often we're lecturing at kids and it's a top-down
Right. It's like,
conversation.
honey, I don't want you to, one
Exactly.
second. What? Right. Right.
Exactly. And so this kind of
All
levels the
right. So
playing field and like makes kids feel a little smarter and more in
right.
control in their parents.
Yeah. I wonder if I would want my kid to do that to me. I don't know. They're older. But let's talk about the obstacle to what I want and what you want, which is kids doing more things in the real world, whether that's going to the skateboard park or practicing basketball outside or going to the store and getting the ingredients and baking a cake. Uh, the thing that pains me is that even before phones came along, that so few kids were being allowed to do that because it had already become abnormal to let your kid do almost anything on their own in the real world. And to a certain extent, the phones were this magical escape route from a life inside and whether you're in the car or in an organized activity or at home that was so constricted and structured and overseen and dull and predictable. Like, at least here was a way where I could go and meet my friends and joke around and make things together and flirt that was not adult run. So one of the obstacles to get kids off the phone is if they have this world where they can have fun and it's online, and they don't have a world where they can have fun outside the house. What are you seeing? I mean, what are parents saying when their kids come to them and say, look, mom, I want to have a real life? I just read this book and it says I should be, playing outside with my friends. What are parents, how are parents recalculating?
Yeah, well, I'd first say I very much agree with you that it makes sense that kids were very, and honestly, all of us, very vulnerable to these devices and these apps because we have for a long time had less fun and freedom and friendship in the real world. That was already happening, as you're saying, especially because kids in particular were being kept inside so much more for a variety of reasons. I know that you go in way more
Mm-hmm.
and are an expert in that area, but I mean, I grew up in Manhattan in the 80s and
Mm-hmm.
I was not out
Yikes.
there. Yeah, I was not out there riding a bicycle. I mean, my mom did when she was a kid in New York, but that was not my
Yeah.
experience, right? So it makes total sense that like when I give talks to parents and to kids, I often say it's completely developmentally appropriate for your tween and young teenager to want to have more freedom from you and independence and more friendship, like time to spend with their friends and more fun. If they don't have
Mm-hmm.
the opportunities to do so in the real world, as you're saying, they're going to seek them wherever they can. And if you give them a device that promises to offer those things and does give some, I would say, like hollow version of
Right, as a
friendships
pale
and freedom.
imitation, Plato's cave, a shadow on the wall.
Exactly. It's not
Right.
really fun.
Hmm.
It's not really freedom to be using a device that's designed to addict you, and you're not really a
Yeah.
follower is not the same
It's
as a
like
friend.
getting high. Okay, I'm out of this boring place. Yeah.
Yeah, you need an escape. So I
Hmm.
think that your point is very well taken, that it makes sense. And one thing I remember you mentioning when we were working on the editing the book is that very point. That
Hmm.
like, of course,
Hmm.
kids are going to want to use these things. So I think that's important for parents to recognize because we kind of blame kids for wanting technology and being tethered to it. But it's like, what are we offering and as an alternative? And so I think to answer your question, what I've really noticed more and more over the past couple of years, including in myself, is just that a lot of the problems with us as parents and our anxieties and our
Hmm.
fears, and just being so anxious about giving our kids more freedom and the opportunity to do things on their own. And I hear that a lot when there's pushback for the phone-free school policies in school. And it's like, what are we worried? I mean,
Hmm.
I know what they're worried about. They're worried about a shooting situation, but that thankfully is extremely rare. And in a lot of cases, it's like, no, I need to be able to communicate with my kid because of a doctor's appointment. And it's like, so you want them
No,
to
you
have
don't.
a smartphone in their pocket for the. I have a friend who's a therapist who says that she's got patients in their 20s who can't deal with any kind of conflict or anything in their life because they're so used to just texting their parents for advice immediately, like from school, to get advice on any kind of challenge that. So anyway, I think there's a lot of self-reflection for us as parents to do, and that's one reason I'm so appreciative of the work of Let Grow.
Yeah, I was going to put in a plug for Let Grow here because one of the things John talks about a lot in the anxious generation is that a collective problem. Right now, the problem is not only kids on their phones, it's parents not knowing when they can let their kids do anything in the real world, needs a collective solution. So, one solution is to take away the phones, wait till they're 14 to give them a phone or 16 with social media and no phones in the schools. But the other thing is to renormalize for a bunch of people at the same time letting their kids go and do something outside. And if you're in Manhattan, you can walk to the store. And if you're in the suburbs, you can hop on a bike. And if you're in rural America, you can, play outside with some of your friends that you bring them home after school with. But it's outside and it's self-organized and it's not supervised. And that's been something that has sort of disappeared gradually over the course of, I would say, a generation or two. And so, one of the things you recommend in your book, and that of course we recommend because we're Let Grow, is the Let Grow experience.
Hmm.
And that's when schools give kids the once a month homework assignment to go home and do something new on their own with their parents' permission, but without their parents. And the reason it's so effective is that it is collective. Like everybody in that fourth grade class is going home and doing something new on their own. So you're not the crazy mom, you're not the Catherine, right?
Yeah.
Or the Lenore letting your kid,
But
go to
you
the
and I
store
would
and get
hang
the
out,
muffin mix.
so we wouldn't be alone. It would be the two of us in the
Well,
car.
that's true too. It's really it's great for both generations. I mean, I really think that one of the reasons parents are so overwhelmed and depressed and stressed is that they are expected to be spending so much more time with their kids than our parents spent with us. I mean, there are studies that show that college educated moms are spending the equivalent of an entire extra day a week with their kids on childcare than they would have in the 70s when half of them didn't work. And so, if you start getting used to letting your kids do things on their own, even if they're just in the next room and they're making dinner for you
Mhm.
without you there, without you saying, be careful, curl your fingers under when you're chopping the food. If you're
I do
not
that.
there, they will. Huh? It's a
Guilty.
good thing.
Well, there are
Go
knife
to
skills,
the
Lenore. There are knife skills
there are,
before
no,
you
I'm
begin
not
shooting.
saying don't teach your kids skills. I'm saying teach and run, right? Get it underway. Okay, you figured it out. And then there are some things that you'll forget to teach them. I know that like when he's not going to be watching this webinar ever. When my older son, a genius, was making macaroni and cheese for the first time. I'm not watching. I'm the free range mom. It says to drain the pasta, right? You boil it, you drain the pasta, and then it says add the milk. So he drained the pasta, and it's in the colander, and he added the milk. Great. Wow, this is
But
really not very mushy. Yeah, you don't. Anyways, drain the pasta, put it in a bowl, add the milk. So they're going to make some mistakes, and that's so great. And also, you won't have any funny stories to tell if you're there making sure, no, honey, first put it in the pan, put it in the bowl. So you want to not be there. And with the whole idea of a let grow experience is that a bunch of people are doing it at the same time. And then the kids are comparing notes, and the parents are comparing notes, and the parents could be having coffee together while the kids go out and do something. It's more fun if they're doing something with other kids anyway. And then you've re-normalized the idea that, kids don't have to be with you all the time.
yeah.
Sorry, I was talking to a high school teacher today who's doing the Let Grow. There's a version for high school students. And one of the things is he's having the kids can choose to do is do their laundry. And I'm like, that sounds pretty easy. It's not, he said, no, 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 they have to iron. It's
Oh.
like, oh, okay. Okay. There's some heat involved, right? A little frisson of danger. So anyway,
The
so your
decision for a
book,
burn.
so
That's a
that's right, go for the burn. Once burned, twice smart. So in your book, you talk about the Let Grow experience. Have you heard of kids doing it?
Yeah, I've actually heard from schools doing it. And then my own
Mm-hmm.
daughter's school, I give a talk there to the kids. They'd read a preview of The Amazing Generation before it came out, and then I talked with them about the secrets of the tech wizards. But then we invited them to, this was right before winter break, to then do some Let Grow experiences on their own. And so that was really
Mm-hmm.
cool. Like I've seen my own daughter really take that to heart. At one point, she's 10. We live in urban Philadelphia. So it's not like a bucolic rural situation, but we
Mm-hmm.
came back and found a note that was like, I'm at the playground. And then it said under it, let grow experience. So Lenore, your influence is being felt. I was
That
telling
is
Lenore,
so
we,
great.
we talked earlier
You
this week
should bring
about
her in. Right. Right.
she's
Hey.
she's going to bed, but she's been selling books on our stoop. She's trying to sell my books on the stoop for money. She and her friend did snow shoveling. She was snow shoveling for a neighbor. Yeah, and also like if
Wait,
you're
for cash money?
oh yeah, and if you're like honestly, I feel like this is a niche that kids should be more aware of because so few kids are doing that now that you get a lot of tips. But I will
Oh
say
my
you'll be
God.
happy, Lenore. Someone knocked on our door. I heard a knock on the door on Monday when it was snowing, and I had no idea who it was. And it was three kids from the neighborhood, and they were going door to door, and they were saying, "We will shovel your sidewalk." And I was like, "For how much?" And they clearly hadn't thought that part through. And one of them's like,
Wow.
$10." And I was like, "It's a pretty good deal."
Done. Yeah, really.
Um,
And for the rest of the winter too.
exactly. But I think just going back to what you were saying before about the Let Grow experience, I was really inspired by something Lenore was telling me the other day when she and I were just chatting about the kit that comes with the website, the free resources that are on letgrow.org. And you were describing how there's the option to make a tree where the leaves are individual Let Grow experiences the kids are doing. I was just on another podcast today and I was actually telling them about that, where the kids can write down their Let Grow adventures and then be inspired by each other. And I love that. That's such a wonderful
Oh, I will
idea.
send you a million pictures.
That,
So
yeah, and also just like
you
it's
don't have to put up a
easier.
real tree. It's
You don't even,
just a piece of cardboard or construction paper on the wall. And then if you download the Let Grow experience for the schools, free, 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 the leaf that you can cut out says what I did and how it went. And I have to tell you my favorite one of this, which was that one kid decided for each month there's a different topic. And like one month is do something for your family and do something outside and do something with a friend. And one month it was like, I don't know, get out of your comfort zone or expand your social horizons or something. And so one kid decided to sit with the kid that no one liked. And I don't remember the kid's name, but let's just call him Luke. Okay. So on his leaf, he wrote, I sat with Luke. And then how did it go? He wrote, or what did you learn or something? And he wrote, he's not that bad. And they had to hide the leaf. It's like you don't want
oh
Luke
my God.
seeing that leaf. It's like, oh, it's there. I'm sure it's
I think
there.
it fell off the
But
tree. Yeah.
right. But what was cool is that not only did he sit with Luke or whatever the kid's name is, he started playing basketball with him because who cares how much you dislike a kid, you can always play basketball with them. And then they sort of became friendly. I don't think they became friends, but I mean, all we're talking about is like to be a rebel
Yeah.
is to take your world from here to the real world and all the experiences, including some things that messed up. One other kid's let grow leaf that we like is that he made ziti and he learned what? Don't burn the ziti. It's like yeah, that is a lesson, right? Don't pour the milk through the colander. I mean, life is a lesson,
Yeah.
and you
You're not going to
gather
learn it.
all these things. You're not going to learn it if you're in two dimensions. You don't even smell it or taste it or touch it, right?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And well,
just
I
there.
love your point, Lenore, that if you're like watching someone bake a cake online, you don't get to eat the cake. Just bake a cake.
Yeah,
Even if it turns out really badly, you can lick the batter up. I mean, I think one thing
right.
that I've really loved about just exploring this idea of helping brainstorm ways for kids and adults because I'm a big believer that adults are not having enough fun either and that we need to get out and have our own let grow
That was your other
experiences
book,
in
How to
this
Have
thing.
More Fun.
Yeah,
Right?
the power of fun. But I think that it's
How
been real,
powerful.
what has been, well, two things. I love the fact that this entire concept is rooted in the idea of fun. Like if you get a homework assignment that's like go do or try something that you're curious about or that scares you a little,
That
no matter
you want to do.
that
That's
you
what,
want to do,
yeah,
that's
the
fun.
secret sauce.
I
Yeah.
love that. And then I also really love that once you start as a parent thinking, and I'm speaking from personal experience, you start thinking about like what could this look like? The world is full of possibilities. I mean, it is like catching leaves as they fall from a tree or something. I remember asking our pediatrician because my daughter was pretty young when you and I first started talking about this, and I'm like, okay, she's like 7, like I'm not really sure urban Philadelphia, like what can we do? We had her walk the dog around the block, and then multiple neighbors were like, oh, is she okay? Anyway, our pediatrician was like, maybe you just have her go to a different aisle at the grocery store. Like maybe if you go to the movies, which I guess no one does anymore, but if you were to have your kids sit somewhere else with their friend, like there's so many entry points to this that no matter what your situation is, I'm just finding there's like some way, there's always something you can do. I mean, maybe you're
They
not
can
sending
always
your
make
5-year-old
pancakes.
for, yeah, you can
Hmm.
always make pancakes
Hmm.
or an egg. I don't know. Uh,
Right. I cannot tell you how many kids make eggs. And when we started doing the Let Grow experience at the beginning, I thought kids were like told to exaggerate how scary it was so that it would make an interesting essay for class. And it's like, I was afraid of approaching the flame, or I was worried I would burn down the house. But then I heard it from so many different places across the country that it made me realize kids are really growing up terrified. This high school teacher today who's having some kids iron said another option he was giving them was that they could sew on a button, but many of them were afraid of getting hurt by the needle.
oh, wow.
So yeah, so we're really raising our kids. I mean, two dimensions, nothing hurts. You don't fall down, you don't get burned. And then you start thinking, well, the real world is just too scary. So you have to flip
Yeah.
it.
let alone with like AI chatbots and relationships where you don't have to interact with anybody. I feel like Corey wants us to answer your
Corey's
questions, but
here.
I
Yes,
did
and
want to
now I'm looking
share.
like
Can I share one quick, like just my own personal Let Grow testimonial, which was so cool. I was telling Lenore this the other day, but because of Lenore and Let Grow and this movement you've created, we sent our daughter in, I guess like a couple, maybe 6 months ago to go into Target on her own to buy something, which I don't think she was particularly terrified about, but it was just kind of like, go try that. And she went in and she got whatever it was. I'm sure she got something extra too, which was extra fun. And then she went to use the self-checkout. And this is like impossible to figure out for adults also. And so she couldn't figure it out. And she had to go track down an employee and ask the employee for help. Like, how do I use this? And that woman came over, walks my daughter through it. They work together. She pays for it. The employee is so delighted at having had this interaction that she bids farewell to our daughter with a hug, which is really sweet. So it brightened her day. And then our daughter walks out into the parking lot. My husband was waiting in the car, and she said exactly what Lenore you say, kid, like verbatim what you say kids will say. She walked up to my husband and she just goes, I did it myself. It was like, there you go. And it was so cool. And that was before, that's what inspired some of the notes that were like, let grow experience. It clearly was like
so
something she
great.
took to heart. Yeah. So thank you.
Wow. All
Actually,
right.
personal
My
thank you.
next webinar is with her. I mean, she just sounds terrific. Right. I'm coming to Philly. We'll do it in person. It'll be great. I'll send her
Yeah.
to Target. Wow.
Perfect. Thanks, Catherine, for sharing that. Such an amazing story, and a good testament to what we do here at Let Grow. So appreciate that. So yeah, we have about 15 minutes left. We're gonna quickly go over to our Q&As, and we have six to answer. So we'll just start with in the order they came. And I'll let you two decide who will be the one to answer it. But what are your thoughts on education games such as online games for math practice? Do these have a risk of creating deficits in attention?
Well, ed tech is a whole separate can of worms, which we could have many discussions about. I would say, in general, I think we definitely should be rethinking our approach to technology in the classroom, and that many of these so-called educational products were introduced to classrooms before ever being tested to see if they would be, actually have any
Any
positive
any
effects,
good.
any good.
Right.
And in many cases, they haven't. I mean, with that said, I used to be a math teacher actually back when I was supporting myself as a freelance writer. I spent a year teaching Latin and math for a year.
Wow.
This was like 2003, so like we're not talking
Those are the
significant.
hardest subjects, both of them. Right.
I didn't anticipate that would be what I was doing. Anyway, I realized the kids didn't have their basic math facts down, so I had them go to like the computer lab. There was actually that, and there was like a bingo game they could play to just practice multiplication. And I will say, like, I think there's situations in which that gamification for basic rote memory thing, it can work because that is, I mean, it's using your dopamine system for a positive outcome, which is learning the facts. But with that said, it's now 2026, and I think we've way overdone it. I don't know that I'm looking at the question right now. I don't know that like math games in particular are destroying kids' attention spans, but I think a lot of the other things they're doing it's for schoolwork are. And I'd also say I've heard from the tech director at my daughter's own school that there's like a website that's called like mathgames.com or something. He's like, let me just tell you that is not math games. Like there's lots of things where it's like, this is educational, but it's just like a video game so anyway, I think we should exercise caution around ed tech, seriously rethink our approach, while still acknowledging that there's like a way in which you can use some of these things to be useful, but it shouldn't be dominating our children's classroom experience or education. There's better ways to learn.
Perfect.
I
So the
would
next
totally
question
agree.
that came in, what advice would you give a middle school teacher or parent of elementary children on how teachers and parents can work together to help kids get back to discovery mode?
Well, I think Lenore answered that question really well, where if it's in the classroom context, assigning Licro experience is just a fantastic thing to do. I would go a step further in saying that maybe the kids could assign it to their teacher too, so that everybody is doing it and really level the playing field. I mean, the kids would love that to find out what their teachers did that felt new or
Oh,
uncomfortable.
oh, I get it. So the teacher has to go home and do something new, maybe
Yeah,
without her kid or without her spouse. And yeah, like
with
maybe
the
I would
kid's
have to
permission,
like,
but without the kid.
right. You're going to stay home. Wow, that'd be really wonderful. And
I
they
think
could
that'd be
put a leaf on
fun.
the tree. Yeah,
Oh yeah, a
that's
new leaf
very
on the tree.
cool.
And then I also would say like that just I was going to say, just as a general philosophical thing, and I know this aligns with what you always say, Lenore, too, but I do strongly believe it, is that we're just overscheduling our kids. And like, you're not in a discover mindset if you're on the soccer field doing drills as a 7-year-old because you've got a travel tournament. And I'm sorry, I don't mean my tone to sound judgy to anyone whose kid is doing travel soccer.
It sure does, but that's okay.
It sure does. Yeah, it definitely did. But I guess it just makes me sad because that isn't discover mode. And I guess the reason it makes me sad is that kids are naturally in discover mode. And I think one of the bad parts about transitioning to being an adult is that you switch out of discover mode, not necessarily, and that's like an open attitude towards the world where new opportunities feel exciting and not necessarily like threats. Just to clarify, it's a term we use in the book. And we contrast that with defend mode, which is when you think of you're anxious and you're scared and you're more just in a defensive stance and you're worried and about new opportunities. But I think that kids are just much more naturally inclined to be able to be open to the world and to be in more of a flow state. And that's a wonderful thing about childhood. And so, one of our jobs as adults and parents is to protect that and help them grow and stay in that mindset, and ask themselves, what's the worst that can happen if you make pancakes? What's the worst that can happen if you try out for the school play and you don't get the part? So anyway, but I do think that the hyper scheduling that we're as parents all feeling pressure to do to our kids and the lack of opportunity for anything else is really getting in the way. And to that point, I also wanted to put a plug in for another initiative I know that Let Grow creates and supports, which is play clubs, which is the idea that you actually just let the kids hang out before or after school in a very uh, not entirely unsupervised, but minimally supervised way. Like I know you say, Lenore, like a lifeguard at a pool, and they actually just get to hang
Right.
out and like put out some balls, put out some art supplies, put out some games, and just let them be. Because I think the issue is that there are times when parents are working and school schedules don't align very well. And sometimes we don't yet feel comfortable letting our kids just roam the neighborhood, or you're in a neighborhood where that won't work. But if the school has a playground and they're able to get just a couple adult lifeguards, like that's just such a wonderful way to let kids' creativity shine. And I think as adults, we often underestimate kids' ability to entertain themselves and how creative they can be if we just give them the chance.
It reminds me of what we were just talking about of Sean Killingsworth's what are his clubs called? Like the
The
be-ins,
reconnect movement. Yeah, I would definitely
the
recommend
reconnect
looking up
movement.
reconnect.
Right,
Yeah.
but Electro Play Club is a reconnect movement at school. After school, there's a place where
Yeah.
you can hang out without phones and just get to know you can talk to your friends, you can play a soccer game, you can draw with chalk, you can do anything. And there's this third space that everybody's looking for that has a bunch of kids because they haven't all gone home yet and different ages, so you're not just stuck with the kids in your class who you may or may not get along with. And then there's this swath of free time that is unscheduled. It's like scheduled, unscheduled time.
Yeah, exactly.
Perfect. So the next question here comes from Aaron. We hosted a community read of The Anxious Generation over the past 6 months, culminating in a mental health summit community
Cry in.
conversation this past weekend with almost 1,000, oh, culminating, yes, sorry. 100 people discussing next steps in our community. What actionable steps can parents and communities put into practice in response to the issues presented in TAG?
Yeah, well, thank you. That's amazing that you guys had a summit like
A
that.
hundred people is great.
It's a
Really
lot.
great to hear. So,
Yeah,
some of
thanks.
what I'm going to say you may already be doing. One is to do things like a community read of the Anxious Generation and the Amazing Generation. So, check. Seems like you did that. As you probably know, but I'll remind people who haven't read The Anxious Generation, there's four main foundational principles in that book, the four norms, as John calls them, which are the goals, which is to delay kids' access to smartphones until at least high school, if not later, social media till at least 16, if not later, to give them to phone-free schools from bell to bell, and then Lenore's norm, the Lenorm, if I may,
I love it.
which
Do
is
you
more
mind? TM. Right.
TM, which is more
Right.
independence. Yeah, independence, free play, and responsibility in the real world. And so I think that's what I would focus on as a parent community is how can you find a couple of like-minded parents who can agree with you that you're going to delay your kids' access to smartphones and social media because you don't need to get everybody to do it. You just need your kids not to feel totally left out. I'd also point out that a lot of times we parents think it's black or white. It's like no phone or an iPhone, but it's not the case. You can get them a smartphone alternative like a flip phone or a basic phone. There's lots of companies that make these now. like Pinwheel and TrueMe and Bark and Gab. There's a lot of them where they don't have social media or the internet, but they do let your kid text and call. Some of them have maps, some of them have music. Like you can kind of pick and choose the type of phone, but that means your kids can go, talk to their friends and have some freedom in the way that they interact with each other. So it's not a black or white thing. So I would also definitely recommend that as parents, you support the idea of having phones out of schools from bell to bell, not just instructional time. The interstitial time between classes, like recess and lunch, that's when relationships develop. That's when kids have fun. It's really important to have phones away from those times. And also, if you're constantly getting the phone and then putting it away and getting it, you're going to spend the whole class time thinking about the phone. So it doesn't really work. So I'd say the main pushback about phone-free schools comes from parents. So it's really important as parents that we support those policies and that we talk to other parents to get them on board. And then in terms of the fourth norm, the La norm, then we talked about a lot about the let grow, like creating play clubs, giving your signing the let grow experience if you're a teacher or just doing it as a family on a family level. Um, yeah, giving your kids just less structured, more unstructured time. And then I also really recommend reading The Amazing Generation. What seems to really be working for a lot of families is getting the book and kind of leaving it out. And it's really been delightful to hear how often kids have picked it up before their parents have said anything to them about it. And if that's not your kid and they don't just pick it up and read it, I would also suggest having the approach of saying, hey, like, I actually want to work on my own screen habits. And I heard about this book and I was hoping you could read it and then share with me something that you learn and like use what you learn to help me have a better relationship with technology when we're together. And again, I'm all about trying to level the playing field a bit more between adults and children when it comes to screen discussions. I do think there's a very important role for parents to just have boundaries, but like when you talk about it, it's really helpful for them to feel that you're not just lecturing at them and to give them a little bit more control and more input into this conversation. So those would be some suggestions. There's obviously great resources that are free at letgrow.org. And then in terms of the amazing generation, we have a community reads guide, a free preview, an educator guide, and an adult parent discussion guide, all up on amazinggeneration.com.
Can't go wrong with any of those. And I would add one more thing, which is one of the things, actually, I think it was John's idea, is try to organize a free play Friday, which is you just tell everybody in those 100 people, look at, we're going to be dropping off our kids on at Friday at this park that's near, near the school or whatever. And from 3 to 6, and we trust them there, and the older kids will look after the younger kids, and feel free to drop off your kids there too. And that way you have this critical mass of children, and then you've started this tradition, and then they all look forward to Fridays. You look forward to Fridays. You and your friends could go to the bar down the street, or the cafe, whatever you want, and just be kicking back a little, and the kids know where you are. And it's delightful to know that your kids are making friends in the neighborhood. When we did one of these Harris poll studies that John and Zach and me did. One of the
Yeah.
questions was, what would get you off your phone or something? And kids 8 to 12, basically the age of reading The Amazing Generation, 72 or 73% said, I would be on my phone less if I could play in the neighborhood more.
Yeah, it's clear
So
that they
free
don't
play.
want to be, they don't want to be. I mean, yeah, it's not that they want to be on these devices. They don't want to be left out and they want to be having fun with their friends. So as long as we can open up more possibilities for that, I find that with adults too. It's like as the fun in your life increases,
Yeah.
your screen time decreases naturally. And I'd also
Wow.
say,
Yeah.
yeah, which is a really nice kind of
Yeah,
seesaw
of course.
relationship.
Yeah.
There's also a great opportunity coming up if anyone catches this webinar before March 6th. It's the Global Day of Unplugging for March 6th and March 7th, which is like a just an invitation for people around the world to take a break from screens. So that could be a wonderful thing to do with your family and with your friends and for your kids or teenagers to do with their friends is like commit to taking a break, ideally the 24 hours, but make sure you plan some fun stuff to do with that time. So like if you've got teenagers, be like, why don't you invite some friends over for like an unplugged sleepover or like go do something, I don't know, whatever they like to do, whatever your like grow fun experiences that
Hmm.
your teenagers do.
Make
But
pizza. Yeah.
make pizza, yeah, like just you can kind of
Mhm.
use that as an impetus to try out some of the ideas we've been talking about and start the
It's
conversation.
great to have a holiday. That's so smart. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Globaldayofunplugging.org is the website.
All right, so we have just a few more minutes here.
We have one
We
more
might,
minute.
yeah, we might go over a minute or two, but we might not get all these answered, just to let everyone know. We'll answer them in an email. So I haven't, the next one is I haven't read the book, but how does my son make friends or get real life experiences if all the other kids are home on their phones? My son's friends are literally not allowed to come out. Their parents are still more afraid of the real world than they are the internet world. I can't communicate with them directly due to language barriers.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
tough one. I'm sure Lenore has thoughts on that. I would
My
just,
thoughts are going to be repeated, which is that if the school is assigning as homework that the kids have to do, you must go home and do something new on your own without your parents. It's sort of like you have to put the cart before the horse. You have to get the
Mm.
parent used to letting go before they're ready to let go. And the way you do that is by having the school say that this is something good, that we think it's good for you and your kid and their education and their cognitive abilities and their maturity is to let them do something on their own. And then, of course, they can do it together, right? I mean, it could be a couple of kids going together to the supermarket or to the park. And that'll help. And then also, if you keep the school open for free play, then you have a time and a place where your son, who wants to just be hanging out with his friends, will find other people. Maybe they're not the kids in his class. Maybe they're not the kids right in your neighborhood, but there will be some kids there. And then it starts this coterie. And then when he comes to school, it's fun because you see your friends again. So there's, the reason Let Grow is dedicated to the Let Grow experience and the Let Grow Play Club is that they're two really simple things. All our materials are free, and we hear you. We hear
Mhm.
a lot about kids who want to have a childhood, and nobody can figure out how to piece it back together except through this. And we think there's another way.
I love that. I love that advice that it come through the school because that makes a lot of sense. It's like then they have to do it. And then once I kind of think it as like a picking a lock or something, then it just opens up this
Mm-hmm.
world. Um, yes, and you made me think of something else, but I just totally forgot what it was. I mean, I was going to say you
Teach
don't
them to
need
pick a lock.
everybody. It doesn't need everybody. Like you just need a couple people to start with. And oh, I remember what I was going to say, that what you're describing actually to me really crystallizes why this issue is so urgent because what your son is experiencing is what the future for our kids will be like unless we as adults stand up and take collective action, which is to say they won't have the opportunity for real life fun with their friends because everyone's just going to be home on their phones. And that's something that Sean Killingsworth, the young man that we keep referring to,
The
he is
skateboarder in chief.
the skateboarder in chief, but he has a really poignant talk online if you look up his name on YouTube, where he talks about how he just feels like for his generation, it's really a social wasteland, as he calls it in his words. There's not the opportunity to go hang out and do fun stuff with your friends because everyone's been conditioned to spend all their time at home on their phones. So, in order for all of our kids not to have the experience of your son and for your son to escape that experience and have friends to have fun with, we as parents really do need to take action. It's really, to me, quite existential in terms of what are we doing with our limited time on Earth?
Perfect. So, the next question here is from an attendee who has read How to Break Up with Your Phone and also The Amazing Generation with their 7 and 10-year-old phone-free kids. And the question is, do you have any advice regarding parent use of their phones and how to model good behavior to their children? How important is this? Do you think parent phone social media use as has an impact on child use?
Yes. And also, congratulations on deleting your apps. That's so cool to hear. That's what I mean, where I'm like, it's actually spanning this like much broader,
It's amazing.
age span. But yes, it is essential that we as parents look in the mirror, like not to shame ourselves, but just because we were subjected to the same tricks, we fell into the same traps, and our kids smell hypocrisy. Like they know. And I know this for sure, both because we know that about kids, but I give talks to kids all the time, and I often start my talks by saying, please raise your hand if you've ever felt hurt or ignored because of something your parent did when you were together and they were on their phone. Every single hand goes up and they tell me stories that are like daggers through the heart if the parent actually heard. My dad says really wanted to show my dad something I was doing and he said he saw it, but he didn't. And I know he didn't because he was looking at his phone. Like that kind of story where you're just like these attempts at connection just being ripped apart by this third party in the room, which is the phone. So it does matter. And that's actually why I have all my books in front of me right now. How to Break Up
There
with
you
Your
go.
it's a plan for it's like older teenagers and adults, and it has a 30-day plan in it about how to change your habits. So I'd recommend that as a resource in addition to the Amazing Generation. But really, congratulations on getting rid of your social media.
Perfect. Um,
Making me feel bad. Right.
Lenora, we got to talk about your ex.
Right. Right.
Make
Twitch.
X into an
Yeah.
X.
Right, right, right.
No, you can use it for good if
He's
you're not
not
getting
my
sucked
ex.
in,
I
but
love
I
him. Right, right.
feel like there's some
Yeah.
scrolling going on in the
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
so the next question here, we just have a few more moments. Some people argue that it is better to teach children how to use social media safely rather than keeping them away from it altogether. Do you think this is realistic? You mentioned that children's willpower may not be strong enough to handle it.
I don't think there is a way for kids to use social media safely because the platform is unsafe. And it's not even a matter of willpower. Like we were talking about the addictive nature of it and scrolling, but it's also that there's bad people on the internet who are targeting our children on social media. There's drug dealers, there are pedophiles, there are sextortionists. And I keep thinking about how, well, John likes to say we overprotect our kids in the real world and we underprotect them in real life, online. And that's
Online.
100% true. Like you have no idea who your kid is interacting with online, and it's terrifying. You'd never have a consumer product like available to kids that has like led to the deaths of children. So anyway, there's no way to use social media safely as a child. It's just kind of an end stop. And for people who say, well, you have to teach a kid to swim, you can't like keep them away from swimming pools and then just throw them in. It's like, yeah, but if you had a swimming pool that had a bunch of pedophiles in one corner and then there's like someone
Or
else
sharks.
or sharks and someone's like selling drugs in the corner and like you wouldn't put them in that pool. You'd be like, no, that's not a safe pool for children. And that's really what we're dealing with here. So yeah, I don't think that there's a safe way to use social media for kids.
I
They
wanted
need
to
to be
say what
educated about that. And I do think that's one of the goals of the Amazing Generation is that it is a digital literacy resource because it teaches kids what's going on. I mean, it doesn't talk explicitly about things like sextortion because we are aware of our age range but it does talk about creepy people online and it does give kids a sense of what these platforms really are. So anyway, I hope that helps. That was very definitive.
I wanted to add one thing, which is that they'll learn. I mean, we
Yeah.
all learned after childhood how to use a phone. So you don't have to teach them at age 7 because they need to know at age 27. They could learn at age 26 and 9 months and still be fine.
Well, actually, if you Google chimpanzee and Instagram, you will see videos of a chimpanzee literally scrolling with its like very human-like finger. And it clicks on, it's very interesting to me, snakes, because it's something that triggers fear, and other chimpanzees. That's like what it taps into.
Wow.
Our
Wow.
kids will
Right.
figure it
Single
out.
chimpanzees, right.
Yeah, yeah,
In the
exactly.
neighborhood.
Huntchimpanzees.com.
Available now.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
Perfect. So that is all the time we have today. We are going to end this. And with that, I want to say thank you, Lenore, and thank you, Catherine, for joining us. It was such a pleasure. Catherine, share with everyone where they can get The Amazing Generation.
You get the Amazing Generation wherever books are sold. Amazinggeneration.com. Oh, my dog is. Do you also believe in the Amazing Generation? Yeah,
Right.
she does. She wants to be let grow outside. The
Let me
amazinggeneration.com
grow.
is where all the resources for the book are. And then you can learn more about me at catherineprice.com. And I do a newsletter called How to Feel Alive that I'd love to invite your community to sign up for. And like I said, the Global Day of Unplugging is next weekend. And letgrow.org is where you'll find all the resources we've been talking about. But thank you so much. This was delightful.
No, this is so
Absolutely.
fun. I knew it would be, and now I'm on a high. It's great. Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Corey, for stewarding your first Let Grow webinar. I think you did a great job, and we'll see you all in a month when I interview Camilo Ortiz, who is studying independence as therapy for kids who have anxiety.
All right. Thanks, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.